New Mexico Main Street would like to welcome you to the second in our Main Street webinar series that we're holding this spring. My name is Anna Bly, and I'm the Communications and Media Specialist here at Main Street. This series of webinars is providing an overview of the Main Street four-point approach, and each of the sessions is being devoted to a specific point. The series will culminate in how to achieve Main Street America accreditation and information about becoming a certified executive director. Attendance is required for new executive directors, but certainly nonprofit leaders and board members are invited to attend. We welcome you here, and please share with other board members and interested community members, as well as other individuals who are involved in your community revitalization work. Last week's session covered a little bit about the history of Main Street and the organization point. Today's session is focused on the promotion point, and for that we have Main Street Revitalization Specialist Robyn Beaubien here, who will be presenting today's webinar. Welcome, Robyn.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. I'm so excited to be here today, and it's really fun to get together and talk promotion. So for the next about 45 minutes or so, we're going to run through the promotion point and talk about how it ties into your work with your Main Street program. So let's get going. So today what we're going to cover is what I like to call the who, what, why, where, when, and how of promotion. It's everything you need to know, the good foundation and building blocks that your promotion work will come out of. So let's first talk about the purpose of promotion. It's all about basically positioning the district. A lot of times our main streets are the heart of our commercial core, or were many years ago. And when urban sprawl happened, things began to spread out of the district, and we saw a lot of businesses leave. And there have been a lot of vacancies and properties that have felt the impact of that over the years. And back when the National Main Street movement started, it was really important to people to reconnect with those historic commercial districts and cores and find ways to celebrate them and to revitalize them. And so promotion is really all about celebrating that community and that hub and finding ways to share that and to promote the district through image development, special events, retail activities, and media relations. So let's take a look at those. Well, let's also talk about why. Why are we going to, or what are we going to do to promote our Main Street district? There are a lot of things we've talked about recently with our creative economy and also asset mapping. There are lots of things to look at on that side, and things that are unique to our district that really are things that we can help use to promote that district. So you probably have some anchor businesses, some great businesses that have been in your district for a while, or new and exciting, that lend a whole new vibe to your district. I know that in Portales, the Roosevelt Brewing Company, that brew pub starting up, really began to invigorate the nightlife in that district, and that's a really strong asset for that community. There are also people that are assets in your district, and not only for your organization, but sometimes they're even people that people come to see, and a lot of times it's associated with a business, but they are great advocates and cheerleaders for your district and are a really great resource to promote the district. You typically have some buildings architecture that are very unique. We saw this in Las Vegas, and especially they have a great plethora of historic buildings and some really strong architecture. All of our communities have something to celebrate architecturally in their buildings, so that's something else we can look at to promote. And then unique community characteristics, things that are unique and tell the story of your district and your community that are really unique to you. We also look at historic and cultural assets, and then tourism assets, things that bring people into your community that they will interact. They don't necessarily live there, they're not regional, but they're there specifically to find and interact in your community. So That's what we promote, and why we promote it is because the results are cyclical. If at any time you can insert some customers and money coming into the businesses, you'll see higher profits, which means business owners and property owners typically reinvest in their business and property, which improves the image, which then, as you build and improve the image, you create a climate of confidence for more customers coming and spending money in that district. So if you can insert at any part of this cycle, that's part of promoting the district and building a really strong image that also supports the economic vitality of your district. So how we do this through image development activities, special events, retail and business activities, and media relations. So those are the 4 areas that we really focus on in our promotion work. We also look at how these can tie into your economic transformation strategies as you move that work forward. So let's first look at image development. And these are activities that basically market downtown assets that bring people into the district and really focus on the perception of the district. This is always tied back to your image development, your brand. And the brand is the center of where someone's perception and someone's awareness meets the value that they see of your district. And so just like similar to a product, marketing a destination is all about finding ways to connect with people in these 3 areas. It's a little different from marketing shoes like Nike does because there are a lot more intangibles involved in it. So let's talk briefly about branding. And these are words that I use and just want to make sure that when I use them that you understand what I'm talking about. Basically, your identity is your brand. It's the essence of your district. It's what people expect when they get there. When they come to your district, they expect a certain thing to see. So if you say you're the friendliest district in New Mexico, you better darn well be when people show up at your door. Also, you typically use a slogan or a tagline, which is a repeated phrase in marketing. We see a lot of communities use this. You know, big cities do it all the time. City of Angels for Los Angeles, or the Big Apple for New York. Santa Fe, I believe, even is the city different. So a lot of communities have this, and it's something that really boils down through a brand essence statement and some work you can do there in image development that helps you identify what that key phrase is that is relative to your district and your community. And so marketing is the plan and the process that you use for telling the story of your brand, and target markets are the people that you want to market your story to. And a lot of times, we think we want to market to everyone, but we really have a specific customer that comes into our district. So being able to understand who that is and identify who that is will go a long way to how we turn around and market our identity and brand of our district. It's important to know your district, to understand and be really honest with yourself about what's the good, the bad, and the ugly. What is there that are positive assets, what's potentially negative, and what can we change and what can we not change? What are we just gonna have to figure out how to work around? So a couple of fun things. If we were in person, I'd love to hear you give me some feedback on, but some things that are unique about your district. You want to find at least 5 things that will make your Main Street unique that you can turn around and kind of hone in on as you work on a brand. And knowing what people who visit your district have to say about it and honestly say about it, it's a really important part of knowing who you are. And what promise can we keep to our Main Street partners? What are things that we honestly can say about our district and about our program and things that we're doing that will support our partnerships? And then also, what can we do to keep visitors and tourists moving in and through our district? And they're 2 different, I see these as 2 different markets. Visitor is someone who may come to your community to visit family, or they're there on business, and so they're going to run down and stop by your district to pick something up or to see what's going on, or maybe to eat. Whereas a tourist is someone that you're downtown, your community is a destination that they're headed to, and they're there on purpose, and specifically to recreate in your district. So you want to look at all these pieces to get a really big picture and understand what your promise is to your different target markets and how you're going to reach them. And I do have, these are my top 7 tips for branding. I really believe that it takes a team of people who are willing to work together to build that brand. And when I come in and work with a community, we usually try and put together a task squad or team just for the work that we're doing around branding. So it takes a team. I like odd numbers because whenever you vote, then you never have a tie. And it's great to have informational public meetings to gather thoughts and ideas and data, but I would never ever use those meetings to develop consensus to build the brand, because it's just not going to happen in that big of a group. That's why it's important to have a team to come back and work on that branding and that brand and what it's going to say and look like. I would encourage you to focus narrow and deep to, if you've got and you realize you do have maybe 3 or 4 different target markets, to focus on your top 1 to start with, and how you're going to tell the story and where you're going to tell your story to reach them. Take your time to build your brand and get all your collateral materials together, and do that well before making it public. I've seen sometimes where somebody gets a new logo, and before they have all their other pieces together with their website and brochures, they launch the logo and don't have everything else to back it up. So it's important to take time. And people are going to love your brand, and some people are not going to like your brand. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. But a strong brand will evoke some kind of feedback and some kind of feeling with people, and that's good. It's okay to have negative feedback on things, but it's also about how you handle that. So stay focused on your target market. Don't invest a lot of time responding to the negativity. A lot of times you're not going to change someone's mind no matter what. It's better to focus your energy on people who are on board, or people who might even be sitting on the fence that you can pull over onto the board or onto the positive side. So stay focused on that, and then make sure that everything you do related to your brand is grounded in authenticity, and that is so important, because if it's not authentic, it's not going to have longevity. So let's look a little bit deeper at image development. The pieces that we deal with related to your district and the promotion point, it's all about building your logo, website, some brochures, wayfinding and signage also will relate to that you work within design, your brand, and then your just general marketing of downtown. And one of the pieces I encourage, and you see a sample here from Alamogordo, is that in that branding process, you put together a style guide or a style sheet. Alamogordo Main Street's done it in 1 page, but it just basically shows the logo, how it can be used. It calls out your colors, and it gives listings of what those colors are for print as well as digital use, because that can be different. You want to maintain integrity of the product across different sources. And then typography, the different fonts that you're going to use related to your brand, your logo. And then these should also definitely be cohesive and tie over and roll over into your website and your brochures and everything else you use to keep a really cohesive look to all of your branding collateral, as well as your simple things like your business cards and your stationery, your envelopes, and all of those pieces. So what we're doing, and it's kind of cliche, but it really is true. We're trying to create a place, revitalize a place in our historic districts where people can live, work, and play. We want all these things happening to have a healthy downtown, and then it gives us lots of ways to promote and tell the story of that district, which is important to do. So let's also look at special events. These are traffic builders that bring people into the district, and your focus is on the engaging people and bringing traffic into the district. These are usually larger events, sometimes smaller, but there are a variety of things that, again, bring people into the district. And you see a list of them here: street fairs, festivals, concerts. It could be a gala, a bike car, a race run, and even those parades. I think almost everybody does a Christmas parade of some type, but it's things that bring people into the district, and they might not, interact in the stores, although they may, but it's really about them going, oh, look what's here. I didn't realize this was here, or we had a great time in the district. Let's go back and walk around and look at the shops next week. So it's all about those special events that bring traffic into the district. The typical elements of a special event, there's usually some fun involved: food, entertainment, and people. They're all things that create community, that cause people to interact and relate with each other. Whenever you have kids perform, you're also going to be engaging their parents and the family members. So that's a really great thing to do, is find ways to engage the youth in your community in your special events. But there are things that usually people leave feeling good, feeling excited to have participated in your special event. A quick flyby, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these, but I did want to talk quickly about sponsorships and partnerships because they relate to those special events. They are the same thing, but they're a little bit different. I kind of break it down that a sponsorship is typically related to a for-profit business, whereas a partnership might be more with the nonprofit world, that you're working together on an event. But basically, they get some kind of return on their investment, some kind of a benefit for being associated with it. And some of my tips on great sponsorships and partnerships is to find a connecting personal relationship. Find someone on your board that personally knows someone in that organization or that business that you want to connect with to ask for money. It's always easier to make the ask with someone who knows someone, because people are less likely to say no to someone they know or they have a personal relationship with. Also, understand the brand of the organization that you're making the ask to. Does their message and their mission also correlate to your Main Street districts? Typically a hospital wants to connect with something that's feel good or something that is follows in with their mission and their messaging, and they might not sponsor a wine festival because of the alcohol involved in it. So make sure that the brands and the messaging line up. Give your sponsor something to do, some way to interact at your event. Respect their investment, no matter how great or small it is. Treat them all the same, and follow up with a sincere thank you after your event. Let them know. Something handwritten is always nice to receive when someone has invested money and time into partnering on an event. And then funding those special events. Overall, the board is responsible for Main Street funding and will typically ask an event to self-fund. I have not very often seen where a general fund of a Main Street program will cover a loss on an event that was held. And sometimes it might happen as an event starts off if it's planned for, but typically it's a good rule of thumb to plan to have your events self-fund. And so, maybe you budget for it in your Main Street budget. Maybe you get businesses who come on board and help with the event, sponsorships, all these different things you see listed here are good ways to look. And one thing I highly recommend is that whenever you get a sponsorship, that you let them know up front, but you also designate a percentage of that rolls into your general fund to help fund your Main Street organization. We all know that organizational funding is the hardest thing to track down. So I jokingly call it a tithe, and it's important to do. So let's also take a deeper look at retail and business activities, and these are things that ring cash registers. The focus is on the business themselves and getting some sales there. And these run a huge gamut from events to promotions to sometimes just a paper or a brochure or some type of directory. And you can again see a list here: a sidewalk sale, art walk, a shopping niche promotion. And what I mean by that is like maybe a jewelry store, a dress shop, a hair salon, a nail salon might all have a special a promotion that they do around prom or for weddings and events that they cross promote, and that you have a special niche there that you promote too. Coupons that are handed out at maybe at special events that come back into the businesses, for a discount or some kind of special the week following the special event. Cooperative advertising where you market together, and there's some really good possibilities there, because a lot of times if you can tie it back into your Main Street organization as the umbrella, you can get your nonprofit funding and then list the different businesses that are involved underneath of it, so you get a little more bang for your buck under the Main Street nonprofit umbrella. And then putting together business service directories are a great way to let people know what's going on. And I love that we kind of touched on this with the creative district work that we did in Santa Fe in the end of January, early February, because I think there's some real potential to make some really creative directories that talk about the businesses and services in our districts. We also, in our promotion point, want to look at media relationships, and these are activities that build those media partners. Again, focuses on relationships. It's about interactions, and it's kind of twofold these days because of the growth of social media. So it's about building relationships with your local professionals, the radio stations, newspapers, television, people who are going to be able to do stories to help support and get the word out about your activities. And there is, I believe it's FCC regulation that says that radio and I believe television, newspaper also have to do a percentage of give back to the community in advertising for nonprofits. So as long as you're not advertising something that is going to promote a specific business, but if you're talking about your Main Street events, radio, newspaper, and television will typically have some kind of announcement they can make for you. Specifically radio and newspaper. I honestly have not done a whole lot with television, but know that it can affect that. And then know your regional as well. If you're near a larger city, it's also important to know the media people in that community and build that relationship as well. Some organizations write up their own articles and take their own pictures and send them to the newspaper for publication, and also to the radio for announcements to be made. But they also are times when they will send a reporter to cover things that you're doing and collect that information. And then social media, of course, we have to talk about that because it's so huge these days and kind of the primary way people are getting their information. We definitely encourage each of our organizations to have an active Facebook page, and a lot of organizations are using this as their primary way to get information out to their partners and stakeholders. So it's good to have that. We've also, I would say, do your Facebook and do it well, number one, before you look at any other social media platforms. But we have seen success with Instagram, a little with Twitter, and LinkedIn is a growing way. It's more of a business to business, so it could be a good way to build some partnerships for sponsorships. But social media is definitely on the rise. It's also probably one of the primary places to do advertising and marketing for your events and retail activities. So we know what we're doing. We know why we're doing it. How do we get it all done? And sometimes it feels like this. It feels like there's just way too much to do, and we never will be able to figure it all out. And then there's the whole other issue of those people that are involved, because sometimes it feels like, as a Main Street manager or executive director, that we're herding cats. But the good news is there are ways to pull that all in and to tighten up what you're doing. And I think the national Main Street approach with having our economic transformation strategies and then tying the 4-point work into that is a really good way to really quantify the work we're doing and to tighten it up and take our work plan and look at how all our activities line up underneath of that. And if it doesn't, fit into one of those, then you really need to evaluate why you're doing any activity outside of your work plan. And if it doesn't benefit your organization, through grade recognition or bringing funds in or creating strong partnerships, I would really give it a second thought as to why you're doing that activity. So structure, I know you've probably heard about this in organization last week, but in years past we had committees, and so much of the work overlapped across the different committees that we began to also look at task squads and doing things with groups of people who would jump on board and do a specific task. So part of your start as an executive director is to find how this best works in your community. There are some communities that have a committee for one of the points and the rest are done through task squads, and the rest of the work is done through task squads. So, look at what works for you and figure out how to implement a work plan that will help you get your economic transformation strategies moving forward. You always want to involve people in all the work you do, as many people as you can. Pull people on board, the businesses that are downtown, associations, civic groups, professionals, instructors at a local college. If you have tourism groups, having them interact with your promotions work is always helpful. If you can get a local newspaper person to work on your board or work with one of your projects, it's always great. And then any graphic artists or designers you can get on board are always helpful, especially if they volunteer their services to help with your work. And then if you have people who live in your district, consider involving them as well, because they have a real grasp on, who is there throughout, a 24-hour period where you might only be in the district, for your working hours as well as the events that you're holding down there. So you obviously need to have a work plan. The best of intentions, and we have the best of intentions to get things done, but if you don't have a work plan, it typically doesn't get done. It doesn't get done as effectively as it could. So I would hope that each of your organizations do have strong economic transformation strategies and have identified some strong promotional work under each one of those. If you don't, and if you need some assistance with that, I can definitely help you. You can fill out a service request. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I also find it's really, really helpful if you have an annual calendar that links to a community calendar, or at least you're putting what's happening on it. But if you create an annual calendar for yourself of what you have coming up and what events, I always recommend that with one staff person that you're really not doing more than 4 events a year, because otherwise you're going to get promotion heavy really, really fast, because there's no way you can commit to doing that much work for events and still do the other parts of promotion, much less the other 3-point work that needs to happen with your transformation strategies. So having that calendar so you can actually see how your work lays out, and then you can also input when you have due dates for different things for reporting to New Mexico MainStreet, as well as your required reporting as a nonprofit through the state of New Mexico, that if you have that calendar that shows how all those things need to happen, it will really help to keep you organized. You can also put different things that are happening in your businesses, so you make sure you stop by. If there's ribbon cuttings that the chamber is doing in your district, it's great to be able to go to those. So having a calendar where you can track all that would be really helpful. And you can also do it through Google, where it's shared with your board as well, so they can see what's happening and see where you're at. And that's a great way to share with your board, and they can, if someone wants to meet with you, they know where you are. And it's also really good to have your marketing strategy. We talked a little bit about that with destination and creating a brand, but have a plan in place, put some money behind that. Most organizations, nonprofit organizations, do not spend enough money marketing that organization. And you're also looking at, with your MainStreet district, you're marketing the district itself. So it's important to look at what you're going to promote, know who your target market is, and then to move that forward. I also think one of the key things that we do as MainStreet executive directors is sometimes you're almost the concierge the downtown district. That there are a lot of events that happen in the district that you don't necessarily do or even have a part of, but if you can be there to lend assistance and offer to help make that event come off better, it's benefits you because it's another great event that's happened in your district, and it also shows you're a great partner to work with. And we all like to play nice in the sandbox together to really see our community succeed. So one of my top tips, and I am one of the biggest proponents, is for project implementation plans. And basically, it's just kind of a to-do list that ties tasks together with budget and people and due dates. You're going to need to use one if you're doing any kind of project management. It also helps you to juggle your volunteers. And I won't name the community, but I once was called into a community that had an event 2 weeks away that was desperately looking for some help. In the first meeting I went to, found out no one had ordered the marketing materials and no one had ordered the tickets for the events, which is how they're going to make their money, and the event was 2 weeks away. So it's really, and in the conversation, no one could identify who was supposed to have done that. So that's why I think a PIP can be really, really helpful because you can tie those tasks to people and to your dollar amounts and know what's happening. I think if you ever really want to look at a crazy, amazing task list, visit with Kathy down in Roswell. They have one they do for a major event in their community that involves several people that can share and add and update, and they have a shared project management spreadsheet that really helps to track what they're doing. And basically, it's a giant PIP. So projects do better when you have an implementation plan, and they can be really simple. Here's an example of one. This is just a small one. It's a little offline, but it basically just lists, the task, who's responsible for it, when it's due by, what the cost is, what the anticipated revenue is, and then you could even actually have a list for actual revenue, the progress is happening, and then any comments that are tied to it as things happen. But putting every task down that needs to happen to complete that project is really important. I also like to have, this one doesn't have it on it, but you have your list of your community members and their phone numbers or an email, some kind of contact, so people can get a hold of each other if they need to in relationship to the activity that you're working on. Another one we have is actually on our resource page. I'll make a plug for our website. It's nmmmainstreet.org. And if you go to the resource page and click on, I think it's marketing and promotion, there's a list of different event tools. And this is one that was actually brought to our organization by Lonnie Lott, a contractor who did some work with us for many years. And this is just page one of several pages that show all the different elements you need to put on an event. This is an event-specific PIP. But the really cool thing about it is when you get to the very end, it actually has a budget versus actual page that all the numbers from this are formulated to feed into that. So you always have an ongoing look at is what you're bringing in, is what you're budgeting, what you're actually spending, whether you're in the positive or in the negative with that. So quick word about legal issues. Make sure that everything you do event-wise and that everything you're doing, even in your relationships and partnerships, that there is insurance involved, that you know that you're covered for what you're doing. A lot of times you'll have a directors and officers policy, but you also need to have a policy that covers property and events. And it's all different depending on your company that you go through and whether you own a property that can umbrella these or whether you need a separate one. So make sure you have insurance for your events. If you're going to have somebody do something like a band perform or a group do a play, make sure you have a contract. Make sure that your music and plays and different things you do, that your licensing is in line. We have information on copyright and can get that too if you need that. And then also know your safety, especially as it relates to insurance. Quick example is like bouncy houses. If you plan to have bouncy houses at an event, there are some wider legal implications related to safety. And so sometimes insurance will cover it. Sometimes you'll have to have an additional rider for it. So know know when things are safe. Make sure that you have things that are accessible. If you are getting porta potties for a large event, there's a legal requirement that one of them be handicap accessible. So know what those are, and make sure that you're covering all your legal avenues that you need to cover. So just a closing thought that I have related specifically to working with staff and your board in promotion. I think a lot of times we see the executive director doing it all, and once the board hires someone, they just kind of hand off and say, here you are, we're so glad you're here, thank you, do it all. But really the staff is kind of a support, more of a support to the board, and not the other way around, for sure. So as a staff person, you should be attending all meetings related to your organization. You are the technical and information resource for the board because you're the one who's going to trainings and getting all the information. You should serve as the kind of the cog or the hub for all the work that's happening, whether it's being done by a task or a committee, or someone's volunteering specifically to do something. The staff person should be the go-to and know everything that's happening related to the organization. A staff person should be the one who identifies what volunteers can do and should do related to event. And then you should also know what you need to do in relationship to your work plan. And then the other side of that is that there are things you should and shouldn't do in relationship to what the board knows. You should not speak on behalf of the board or do things or commit the board or the organization to a contract without board approval. Spending should all go through the boards. So if an event has a budget, the board should approve that budget, and then you're free to work within that budget. But if you need to go beyond that budget, that should come back to the board for approval. Basically, the board's responsible for everything that happens. They're the ones who, the buck stops here at if something happened legally. So they need to know what's going on and what you're doing on a regular basis. I highly recommend that, as a staff person, that you're sending a weekly update to your board, even if it's a simple task or bullet list of things that you've done that week. That would be great. So have regular communication. The board is going to approve all the work plan, and sometimes boards can be the rabbit trail people on this too, because a board member will say, oh, I have this great idea, and that's where the staff person can remind them, hey, let's tie this back to our work plan. But basically the board is the grassroots piece of what Main Street is all about, that it's a group of stakeholders who are passionate about the revitalization of the district, and that they are the core, the driving force, and the staff person is really the support person behind that happens. And ideally there could be more than one staff person at some point. So that is how I see the staff working with the board, and it's just important to know where your position is in all this with Main Street and with the revitalization of our districts. But so many times I think we get excited and we want to see things happen right now. And one thing I learned as a Main Street director many years ago is that the key word is incremental. Things are going to happen in little steps, just a little bit at a time, that will impact your district and that will positively move people's perceptions forward and help you promote. So don't be discouraged if you just see baby steps, because baby steps will get you to the big steps. Several small ones will make up one big one. So in wrapping it up, we're looking at how our image development, the work we do with promotion relates around image development, special events, retail activities, sponsorships and partnerships. We have good planning, and our small steps will equal success. And we're creating basically a unique destination, doing everything we can to promote our district. So again, be authentic and tie all your promotion activities back to your economic transformation strategies and the overall mission of your Main Street program to ensure that you're successfully promoting your district. So if you need promotion assistance, we have service request forms, and they are, I believe, available on that resource page. They also are typically in your packets at our leadership network meetings that are held quarterly. and they look like this. And you can get assistance from myself or Gary Cascio depending on what you're asking for. If it's related to image development, marketing, and branding, that's what I do. And Gary does a lot of the graphic design and website work. So we work in conjunction with each other, but we can also help you with planning and working through the different things that you need to do to promote your district. So I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. You should be able to type them in the question bar.
All right,
you can jump in.
Let me see. Hey, this is Anna with MainStreet. Linda, I've just unmuted you. Hey, Linda, did you have a question?
No, I didn't have a question. I accidentally touched it.
Oh, okay, no problem. Okay, don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but please, if any of you guys think of questions, feel free to raise your hand. And as Robin said, you could type questions into the question box as well. We also remind people attending if, you're kind of driving back to work after lunch or, doing something else and something about this presentation percolates with you and you want to dive deeper into it, you can always reach out to Robin or anybody at MainStreet to kind of follow up on questions from today's presentation as well. I'm not seeing any additional questions right now, Robin.
We were comprehensive and covered it all.
Excellent presentation, yes. The other thing I just want to remind everybody attending, and there's certainly other folks that we would encourage and invite to sort of take in this presentation, is New Mexico Main Street has a YouTube channel that's accessible from our home page. There's some social media icons there, and our web address is www.nmmainstreet.org, and all of these presentations will be available there. And let me see. Did you have another question, Linda?
You know what? I don't know if I just missed this, but in the past we talked about how many events per year and the difference between like how many retail and how many special events.
Yes, thanks, Linda. I did hit that briefly, but I'll just reiterate it because I think it's really important. My recommendation with one staff member is that an organization do no more than 4 events a year. And I would see that as 2 special events, one of them being a signature event, and then one or 2 retail events, or even 1 retail event and 1 cooperative marketing event or something. So, depending on what your mix is and your community, it might vary a little bit, but I think so many of our communities are spending a lot of time on events that aren't really benefiting their organization, and they become pretty event heavy pretty fast. And events are a lot of work, so you need to make sure that they're bringing benefit back to your organization. Does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Linda. All right. Well, as I mentioned before, if you think of other questions, feel free to reach out to Robin or anybody here at MainStreet. And again, as I mentioned, the webinar will be available along with this whole series of webinars. We're recording these sessions. Will be available on the MainStreet YouTube channel. So again, encourage you to share them with volunteers and community members and board members and other members of staff that could kind of benefit from this deeper focus into each of the 4 points. I think that's all from us here at MainStreet. Do you have anything else, Robin?
No, just thank you, Anna, and thank you everybody for taking time out of your busy day and talking promotion. And again, any questions, my number and email are there. Feel free to give me a call or get in touch with me.
Yes, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to join us. And we will have another webinar next week on the 22nd, same time. And this one will be presented by Keith Chelstrom on economic vitality on that point. So we'll dig deep there. Thank you for joining us for today's session. We really appreciate it.